Okay, so something that bothers me to absolutely no end is when people either casually or in the media depict sirens as mermaids. I understand that this is something that nobody cares about, but as someone who has spent the last, I don't know, decade studying specifically Greek mythology, this is a hill that I am going to die on. So, the history of sirens. This entire video stems from a conversation and debate that I had with my father a couple of years ago about the origins of sirens, because he, like many people of his generation, thinks he knows more than me simply by the nature of me being his daughter, but I don't engage unless I'm right. So here we go. First of all, the term siren has several official definitions, including a creature in ancient Greek stories, because that's where they originated, that sang to sailors in order to make them sail towards the rocks and crash. A beautiful but dangerous woman, both from the Macmillan Dictionary. In classical mythology, sirens were described as any of several sea nymphs represented as part bird and part woman who lure sailors to their death on rocky coasts by seductive singing, or a woman who uses her sexual attractiveness to entice and allure men, a woman who is considered seductive. Those are from the Collins Dictionary. And any of a group of partly human creatures in Greek mythology that lured mariners to destruction by their singing, a woman who sings with enchanting sweetness, and that was from Merriam-Webster. Now, you're gonna have to forgive my pronunciations on this because I don't fucking speak Greek. But the word from the word siren comes from the Greek word sera, which literally translates to cord or rope. The word siren comes from the Odyssey, which is dated somewhere in the 7th century, definitively proving that nothing predates the Greek usage of the word. The magical fusion of sirens with mermaids happened because of the figurative definition that appeared in the 1580s, meaning one who sings sweetly, charms, and allures. The original myth surrounding sirens and their allure is that they were half woman, half bird, because sirens are bird people that perched themselves onto the rocks, luring sailors in by singing, encouraging them to crash their ships. The Odyssey brings this to life when Odysseus has to tie himself to the mast of the ship as to not steer it into the rocks because he wants to hear the siren song. Now, I'm just off on a tangent here. Sirens, even when they're depicted as mermaids, are depicted as creatures that lure sailors to their deaths by singing. How on earth would that happen from under the fucking water? Perched on rocks makes far more sense. You know, because sirens are bird people. Anyway, there have always been clear depictions of a siren's appearance. Euripides, Helen 167 from the Greek tragedy in 5th BC, winged maidens, virgin daughters of Gaia. Winged. Because they're birds. Okay. Greek poet in 3rd BC, the triple daughters, sirens, who imitated the strands of their melodious mother, one of them, the bird goddess, Parthenope. I told you I couldn't speak Greek. Anyway, bird goddess, because they're bird people. This is also shown to us in literally all Greek art depictions of sirens. As we've established, the time of Greek mythology far predates what we know as medieval times, which is kind of when the mythology started merging with the image of mermaids. So their depictions and change of the lore is entirely irrelevant. Even predating the Odyssey, Greek myth accounts that these winged women were once Persephone's handmaidens, and after she was stolen to the underworld by Hades, they were granted their bird bodies to take to the sky and search for her. All other accounts state that they were punished with their bird form because they were incapable of protecting Persephone. Either way, the myth predates the idea of mermaids by about 1,500 years. The first account of sirens being depicted as mermaids was in the, oh, this is Latin, give me a minute, Liber Monstrorium, a catalog of fantastical creatures that was published around 8th century AD, where it says sirens were sea girls with the body of a maiden but have scaly fish tails. In the 2nd century, the Clement of Alexandria preached that sirens were prostitutes who sang pleasant melodies to men as an allegory for sex and temptation. By the 4th century, Christianity had overtaken paganism, and the literal belief in these mythological creatures was highly discouraged. This is when the sirens were evolved from mythological creatures to a cautionary tale. St. Jerome used the term sirens to translate the term jackals and owls in the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah in the Latin Vulgate version of the Bible. Ambrose of the 4th century also reiterated the idea that sirens were an allegory for temptation. Christianity, even in its originality, was delusional and used other religions' influence to fit their own agenda. Isidore of Seville in the 19th century wrote, "They, the Greeks, imagined that there were 3 sirens, part virgins, part birds, with wings and claws. Bird people. One of them sang, another played the flute, the third the lyre. They drew sailors, decoyed by song, to shipwreck. According to the truth, however, they were prostitutes who led travelers down to poverty and were said to impose shipwreck on them." Because that's what prostitutes do. They wreck your ship. They were said to have stayed in the waves because a wave created Venus. That makes sense, right? Dante and Da Vinci both wrote of sirens, but they kept their depictions very vague, not truly committing to one depiction or the other. Now, mermaids are separate creatures entirely, not truly being documented until The Nun's Priest Tale by Chaucer in 1390. Now, this was predated a little in Scandinavian folklore. Mer meaning sea, menin meaning female, slave was documented in 725. The 2 mistresses of mythology were said to be conflated first by the Teutons, a northern European tribe that were written about by Roman authors. So part of this is it gets lost in translation, right? The Romans heard about this European tribe and wrote about them. The European tribe heard it from somebody else. Like, it traveled, and it's like the worst game of telephone ever. And the mythology just kind of devolves. I was going to say evolves, but that would be wrong because it goes in the wrong fucking direction. Most of the need to join together came from the original myth, women animal hybrids that led sailors to their deaths. Really, all people remembered was the sailors part of that, meaning that these creatures had to be on or in the sea. And with Christopher Columbus's report of mermaids, supported by sailors, absolutely deliriousness. These dangerous women of the seas were ghost stories told by sailors, so it became a sailor superstition. They became a cautionary tale. They became the boogeyman for seamen. These 2 very separate entities are easily mergeable, but the reality is the original myth very clearly states that sirens as their own entity are bird people, part women, part bird, no fish. Mermaids are a separate creature with their own history and their own mythology, and I swear to God, if I see sirens, like the TV show Hulu did, and they're fucking mer people one more time, I'm going to scream. Bird people. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.